Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Marketing Bites, Restaurant Growth Unwrapped. I'm your host, Brian Siemienas, the Vice President of Restaurant Solutions for Nift. Today, I welcome our guest, Jen Bell, Chief Marketing Officer and Partner for Let Us Entertain You Restaurants. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, Brian. How are you? Good to see you.
Great to see you again. Looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming conference circuits, but
Yes.
You've got one of those unique resumes near and dear to my heart. I absolutely love it. You've spent most of your career at Let Us Entertain You. Exactly 26 years ago, you started as Director of Public Relations, worked your way up all the way to the CMO and partner position you hold today. What have you learned over the years in these positions and with the company?
Gosh. I never went into working for Let Us thinking I was going to spend my entire career there. In fact, when I applied for the job, I applied for an advertising coordinator position and I didn't get the job, but I was super hungry to work for Let Us in particular that I called every day. I think I even sang a poem on the voicemail of the recruiter of why they should hire me. So they created a position for me and I was the assistant to the vice president of marketing. So that's how I started. And then 6 months after that, I quickly moved into PR, which was different than my background in advertising. And as you said, I spent a lot of time in PR, but while I was in PR, I knew that communications and getting the word out and specifically websites kind of came into play. And I was always fascinated with technology. Ever since I was a little kid, I was the kind of kid that would take apart the VCR, that's how old I am, and put it back together and see if I could figure out how it went back together. So I sort of had that brain. And I had a mentor who taught me a lot about websites and even the back end, HTML. And I decided that we needed to bring it in-house. And so I started a web department. And then after that, I had two really lovely mentors in marketing. One of the founding partners, who was Bob Wattel, and he ran loyalty and advertising. And then my boss at the time, who I was the assistant for, was Sue Chernoff, and she ran PR and gift cards. Well, they both ended up retiring around the same time. So when they retired, I inherited everything. So I inherited loyalty, gift cards, all these things. And boy, was that scary. But it was such a great opportunity for me to grow. I remember saying to Kevin Brown, who was our CEO at the time, give me a year. Do not judge me for a year. I need to figure this out. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to put as much of my energy and time as I can into this. And I'm going to immerse myself as I can, but I'm going to make mistakes. And he was incredibly kind and gracious with me. And he's like, whatever you need, whatever resources you need. So I really got to hand it to Let Us Entertain You for creating a culture of growth, a culture of development, because I certainly would have gotten hungry to do something else. And it was a really incredible, it's been such an incredible journey for me. And, I've had a front row seat to the evolution of our company, so when I started, it was 18 brands and now we're over 50 brands. So it's been really an amazing journey for me.
Okay, so talking about the company, and we'll get into a little bit later. I'm very familiar with the company, but we actually lived in the same neighborhood, went to the same high school, and we'll get in that later when we talk about personal questions that I love talking about. But, growing in Chicago, up in Chicago, company founded in 1971. For anyone in Chicago, my first memory was always Ed DeBevick's. When you go downtown, you had to go to Ed DeBevick's. They put the one out on Lake Hook Road in the suburbs of Chicago. But started in 1971 with RJ Grunge. As you said today, over 50 brands, over 130 restaurants in a dozen states. What are some of those key brands? And for those who aren't familiar, what gamut? Yeah. You're from Michelin star all the way down to fast casual, right?
Yeah. Our distinctive strength is the variety, right, that we have. And a lot of companies are set up differently, right? So they'll do 1,000 locations of one brand, but we're set up to really grow restaurants that we love. And it's not really by the brand or location, but some of the brands that you'll maybe recognize are the RPM restaurants. We have RPM Steak, RPM Italian, RPM Seafood, and Bill and Juliana Rancic are partners in those restaurants. Summer House is another big one. We have Abba and Ema and Wildfire. There's a Joe's Seafood, Prime Steak, and Stone Crab in Chicago, DC, and Vegas. We have Shaw's Crab House. So a lot of wonderful brands that have and restaurants that have been open for 30 or more years. We have, I think, one restaurant that's turning 40. I think Shaw's Crab House is turning 40 this year. So really, really proud. And in restaurants, 40 years is a lifetime. It really, really is.
Yeah, you bring a smile to my face on Wildfire. My mom and aunt lived up in Chicago, and
Who doesn't love the Wildfire from
up until a
Pennsylvania?
couple of years ago, and that would always be the big gift for them was a
Yeah.
gift card to
Oh, that's
Wildfire
cute.
because that was always their favorite go-to place.
Yep.
So you
Absolutely.
talk about all the brands, and obviously a lot of intricacies involved in that. But from a marketing perspective, always unique because you've got so many different demographics, different types of restaurants. What is your marketing approach with all those different locations and brands?
Yeah, I think we're set up more similarly to the hotel industry and how we approach marketing, right? So we've got the lettuce brand up here. And when I first started, the lettuce brand, we didn't really promote Lettuce Entertain You. We promoted Big Bowl, and we promoted Wildfire, and we promoted Shaw's. And we wanted those brands to stand on their own, and we still do. It's very, very important that each brand can stand on its own. The brand identity is really clear and consistent. But then now we have the Lettuce Entertain You brand, and our loyalty program is around that brand. And the gift cards that you mentioned are around that brand. So we sort of approach marketing where it's the store brands and then the corporate brands, right? And then one size does not fit all. We make it difficult for ourselves, right? I think really believe in guest behavior and data. And I really believe in understanding who your guest is and being very obsessed, we call, with a guest and how they behave. And it's very different from price points to different restaurants to all sorts of different factors. And so our marketing is tailored specifically to those audiences. So whether it's digital, loyalty, social media, PR, partnerships, whatever it is, it's really specific to each brand. And I have a team here at the corporate office, but I also have a team of people that work on the brand specifically, and they're in the restaurants and they're seeing and they're talking to operators. They're actually reporting directly to the operators. And I think that's what makes us successful in that area.
Okay. I've been fortunate, and I'm trying to remember what year it was. At RLC, you were on the panel talking about your loyalty program.
Yeah, 2020, right when we got back from COVID.
Yeah, I think it may have been the 22 or 20. Yeah. It all melds together. That COVID for us older people really screwed it up. But, just loved listening to you. And at that point, you had just, retro and updated your loyalty program.
Yeah.
And, as you mentioned, very challenging because you went from individual brands to having that overarching. But can you share some of the details on how that program's set up, and especially nowadays where, given some of the challenges the industry is having, so many people are relying on that loyalty program and getting more out of it?
Yeah, loyalty is near and dear to my heart. As I previously stated, I never thought in my career I was going to run loyalty. But Bob Wattel, who was my mentor, had this brilliant idea. So he was a frequent flyer on United. And this was in like the early 80s, where he had a United membership, a frequent flyer club. And he's like, we can do this for restaurants. And he had this idea of full service. Now, back then you had punch cards and you had like things like that, but you didn't really have full service fine dining restaurants doing loyalty. It was unheard of. But Bob made it work, and he had this vision that if we can offer people just an intrinsic value in loyalty, that they're going to see that. And for me, value isn't just, the financial aspect of it. A value is how we treat you. And are you getting a lot out of your money? And are we giving you good experience and hospitality? So it was 2014. And that's when I took over the loyalty program. And one of the main things that I did is we realized that the way to enroll was pen and paper. And so I I was like, there's got to be a digital way to do this. And this was before there were white label apps and things like that. So we kind of got a whole team of people together and we decided we were going to create our own app. And with the backing of RJ and Jared Melman, they gave us the license to just say, hey, go for it. And it's expensive. It was a really big investment. Maybe if I know what I know today, I wouldn't have had the confidence now to do what I did back then, but ignorance is totally bliss, right? So I went in and was like, we're going to make this the best app. We're going to make it where, we have this variety of restaurants. It's going to be very unique. There's nothing else like it on the market. And so that's what we did. So we launched the app. I'll never forget, February 2nd, 2015. And it was overnight and there were problems, but needless to say, the app launched. We trained our people to sell it. And by the end of the year, we had over 300,000 people in the app. And what the app allows us to do is really take away pain points from the customers and personalize things for them. So what I mean about pain points is just creating more, it's seamless. So if you're, you and your wife are contemplating where to go on a Friday night, you could pull up our app and just put reservation for 2 at 7 p.m. and you could see all the availability across the entire company of what we have. One click, you can press a time and you can make that reservation. Real easy. And then the details of your reservation are right there. And then also to run the loyalty program, you just check in to the store you're at, you get a code, you write it down, you get your points. Then you have all your history and your reward dollars. You can store your gift cards. So anything that caused a little bit of frictions for our customers, we tried to solve and we're still doing it. So then in 2022, we launched a new version of the app and it's even better. And we're constantly pushing ourselves to be better and do better. We're never done. And I'm really proud of it. I was with the company in 2001 when there was a recession, and then in 2008. And our loyalty program really creates this value that guests appreciate and really carried us through some hard times. And it's there to do that today as well.
Okay. One of the big things on loyalty, and Portillo's near and dear to us who are from Chicago,
Chicagoans, yes.
Launched theirs, and it's one that I like frictionless, but I also love what you've done because you from early on got your consumer, assigned there. What do you if you were to have to do it over, would you go for the full blown creating an app or white labeling from scratch, or how would you approach it if you had to take a position today at a company that didn't have a good one or didn't have one at all?
So if I took a new position to a company that had one brand, I would white label it, no problem. Mm-hmm. But the way we're nuanced, it just doesn't fit, right? So we're complicated and the needs of the different restaurants are different. And the way that we structure everything is a little bit different. What I love about being able to customize myself, albeit more expensive, is that I can really control some of those things that I want to track, that I want to know. I was just sitting down with my director of engineering, and we were talking today about personalization, and we're talking about online ordering and how we can personalize more. And she's like, well, we can do this, this, and this. And it was a conversation that led to like 10 ideas that I had. So I just don't know if I had a white label, if I could control that. I like to be innovative and I like to push ourselves. And as long as I feel like I'm getting a return on that investment, like I said, I have my own app engineers on my team. I do pay them a salary and I want to compensate them, but they also are providing such a value for us and for the company.
Yeah, I remember your case study, even these many years later, of the return you were getting, and definitely was jealous and envious of you as I was having a look at the white label.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I always tell people when they ask me if they should start a loyalty program, and I tell them no. Because it's hard. And unless you're really willing to go in with 2 feet and jump in and immerse yourself in there, you're not going to you can't half-ass a loyalty program. It's just, your customers will feel it. It needs to be positioned in a way where they're getting exclusivity and experience, better hospitality, attention. You're giving them value. And if you're not willing to put the energy into that, it's just really not going to be successful. And it's a lot of work for something that's not successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And, throughout everyone's like, oh, we got to have an app. We got to have an app. And, to your point, you got to offer something because, I mean, people on these phones, we know you don't want to download everything. And,
No, no.
when,
And the next generation does not, right? So
no.
like the Gen Zs, I'm SMS is going to be my friend there, right? So like I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to be doing to really engage with them, right? And sell
Yeah.
them on that.
Okay. Looking, we're still close enough. 2024 was a challenging year. There were a couple that, had very good years. Hope going into 25 was we, end up would be short lived, some of the challenges, but it appears they're around a little bit while longer. We saw McDonald's report their earnings, some concerns, Walmart. How are your locations doing in the current environment?
2024 was actually not a bad year for us. And I think that, the way we look at success might be different than other organizations. We're privately held. And like I said, value to us, it just isn't about price. It's about what guests get for what they pay. So we really focus our energies and efforts on making that experience better. What we learned with COVID, I think, really specifically was that people still wanted to celebrate. They still wanted to go out, that they valued dining out, that was something they needed. Even with the economy and things like that, people are still going to want to celebrate those special moments. They're still going to want to connect with each other. And maybe it's not as often, or they have to kind of consider what's going on, but they're still coming. And it's up to us then when they come to really wow them and really make sure that they have a great experience. So then they come back again, or they choose another one of our restaurants, or they feel like if they choose any of our restaurants, they're going to get that same treatment and that same experience.
Okay. Talking with some marketers, one of the things is, and we've both been around a while, it seems like what's old is now new again, or people have rediscovered it. It's like, oh, there's this great direct mail thing. From a marketing
That's because
perspective,
there's no noise around direct
yeah.
mail.
So from a marketing standpoint, what do you see is working for you in delivering the results? As you said, people are bombarded by so many different messages, and it's just so much noise we all face day in and day out.
Yeah, I think the touch points and the noise is a big one. Jared Melman, who is one of my partners, is constantly pushing me to think about the customer. And the way that they really hone in on details for what happens in the customer experience is just brilliant. So my job is really getting people to the restaurant, and their job is to take care of them. But what I think is so important to me that I've been spending a lot of time on is guest sentiment that is out there. So when I look at what's being said about us on Yelp and Google and Facebook and all the review sites, and then I aggregate all that information, maybe even use AI to help me kind of pull out the insights, but positive and negative and dishes that are positive and negative. What I learn from that are the things that people really love and opportunities for us to improve. And so then I take the things that people really love and I lean in. Right. So if somebody's talking about the mac and cheese at Bub City, we're going to do a mac and cheese blog. We're going to do a post. We're going to feature it. We're going to, really enhance it. But if somebody else talked about their soggy fried pickles or the pickles were soggy, then we're going to go back and look at how we can make that better. Or we take it off the menu, things like that. So I really lean into what our customers say about us. I do think digital advertising has been something that we work on. We've worked a lot on SEO too. That was something that I did like in 2008. It was like a big deal then. And, it's funny that I kind of forgot about it, but it's back in a vengeance in a different way. We have a blog that we write on our lettuce.com site, and it has so much content and information. And when I look at the results on those blogs, there's sometimes people spending 15, 20 minutes reading through our blogs, which is incredible for us. So all the little things are important to me. I took a class at Kellogg, and it was a digital marketing class. And one of the things I learned there is that you just need to be consistent in your message of what you're trying to accomplish. So if my goal is to drive lunch business, I need to figure out how that looks in an email, how that looks on social, how that looks in paid, how that looks in store, how that looks wherever we can make it, and really have a comprehensive campaign around that. And that's just really, it's not rocket science. We approach it that way. I really love AI, and I love what AI is doing for us as marketers. And I think marketers who don't use AI should immediately start, and I can give them ways to get started. But for me, it's better data and information and personalization. So if I can get more data and a better look at the guest and then provide them with an experience that's unique to them, I feel like that's the winning combination.
So on that data, and it's so overwhelming, and the conferences we've been at, the simple answer, people will get up on the panel, say all this great stuff.
I've probably been on that panel.
Yeah. No, you were not, because I do have a later question. But at the Chicago Restaurant Show last year, I remember getting up and someone was showing, oh, look, we go scrape Instagram photos and, can see that what's on the table. And, this person in the Q&A raise their hands. Okay, this is all phenomenal, but it's me and my 2 other team members. How in the heck do we do this? And the answer is, well, AI. But, the follow-up was, okay, how do I do that? What are you guys using? You've got a lot of data. Is it proprietary? Are you working with some partners?
Yeah, so first-party data. So this is what I've been also trying to solve for about 8 years. The 360-degree view of the customer. So for me, what we're prioritizing is reservations, loyalty, POS, and online ordering. If I can get those 4 big major buckets to sort of talk and be in one place, they're not right now, but we're working towards that. That gives me so much insight. So if you, Brian, were to make a reservation at RPM Italian, and I could show the pre-shift manager that this is what you've ordered before, this is what you typically like, this is how often you come, this is some of the things that you do, they can then look at that experience and provide you with the booth that you want and the red wine that you're going to drink, and really recommend things based on your past behavior. So I think that will tell us a lot. Plus, just really seeing, who's in loyalty and engage and who isn't, what the spend is, comparing the differences, setting up triggers, and really understanding, again, how often we need to message guests. All of those are things that I consistently test and learn. I don't have a magic bullet or a magic formula, but we do what little personalization we do very thoughtfully, and it's not creepy. I don't really want to creep you out. I want to provide the better experience. I liken it to if anyone's been on, everyone has bought something on Instagram, or at least most people have, because they're targeted towards you. It's because of what you're watching and what you're seeing and what you're consuming. And every now and again, you see an ad and you're like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. And you purchase, and it's giving it what you want. And you might think that's creepy, or people might not like their privacy out there, but it's actually a product that you liked and you wanted and you needed. And so it was effective. And you actually purchased it. So that's the same with restaurants is, if I know that you're a vegetarian, I'm not going to send you information about a steakhouse, right? That's something I need to know. And data will provide that with us. It's just hard in this industry because everything is siloed, and you have 10 vendors. You have a vendor that does this and another vendor that does this. And, they try to play nicely together, but you don't have all the information. And I think everybody looks at data differently and looks at what insights are important to them differently. So it's really a tough thing. I don't know we'll ever solve it, but any little steps I can make to seeing more about the guest and providing a better personalization marketing strategy to them is my goal.
Yeah. And to your point on the tech stack, a lot of discussions, and I'm sure as we go to conferences, we'll see it again, is I think you're starting to get pushback because, to your point, a lot of them don't talk to each other. Oh, there's an API. And then when you realize what you've put in there, it doesn't work. And each of them are $100 per location here, 20, 50, 75. And eventually had Carl Osborne on talking about the tech, which he's way out there, but I love talking to him. And he was just saying that the, evolution is seamless interaction with all of these. And that's the biggest challenge the industry has, is it's not seamless.
Absolutely. I would say it's the biggest frustration. And, it's funny because we've had certain vendors be like, oh, I integrate with this partner. And an integration in my mind of what like the definition of that is and what the definition is to them totally different. That's what I found out, right? So, oh, you integrate with the loyalty provider, great. And then we see that integration and I don't have any of the frequency or the visits or the information that I need. So it's very important. And I think this is just an industry where we don't have large profit margins to invest in this, right? Mm-hmm. So like when I compare this to retail, they can prioritize this because they have a little bit more money to invest in it and they see the value. We see the value, but the money's not there. It's just an industry that's tough. So unless you are large, like a big player, fast food chain, where you can hire a team of people to do this for you, data scientists, and you have your own data lake and you have somebody that's extracting, transforming, and loading the data. It's just not as easy as it should be. But I think we struggle, and I hope we solve it soon. I would support any company who's trying to solve this for restaurants because I think it's really difficult.
So you talked about online ordering, one of your big, focuses. How active are you guys when it comes to third-party delivery? Obviously, as we are coming out of COVID, I'm sure much more than, where's Lettuce Entertain you today when it comes? Is it a big part of your, sales or?
Yeah. So our big thing is we are now on the DoorDash storefront product, which is basically a white label product of storefront or of DoorDash. And we have that in our app and our websites, and we award loyalty points, and you can use your reward dollars and gift cards. So we do incent people to come directly to us because we save money that way. So if people order directly from our channels, they can earn loyalty and use gift cards. So that is one thing. But I do also realize that there are many customers that are habitual and that are ordering from DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub, and they're loyal to those platforms. So we can't not have both. We have to have both. And so we see a lot of sales coming from the third party delivery partners, but we're paying more commission and it's tough, right? Mm-hmm. We still want to get the incrementality of orders and we want to get more of them. So if somebody's ordering from DoorDash twice a year, I want to get the third time, I think it's important. But I also want to drive people to our own channels because I can control the experience better. And like I said, I can personalize it for you. It's really, I could show you the items you ordered before. You could do a one-click reorder. All the things that you can do in these other platforms that make it quick and easy for you, you can do with us too. So we're really pushing both. My marketing efforts are going to our own channels. But I think it's very important to be a part of all of the big third-party delivery companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I am not a big third-party fan. I think, consumers, the whole process, paying the premium, how long it takes, the delivery. And, my favorite are the images of the drinks getting left on a door that pushes out and, tip over. Totally. But I'm with you. I don't get it. And we're similar age. My kids literally will go out 1 or 2 times less a week to get something delivered, via Uber. And I just view it as, well, I don't get it.
It's wasteful, right? I mean,
there are people that use it.
Can I just get a coffee from Starbucks? I'm like, no, walk down the street and go to Starbucks. I don't understand.
But to your point, they're loyal. So if you're not on there, you're not going to get that sale. So I almost view it as that whatever percentage you can negotiate, it's a marketing fee to reach a customer. Absolutely. That otherwise you won't.
And when you look at the cost of acquiring a new guest, mm-hmm. It's usually 5 times more than what you're, getting another visit out of an existing guest, right? So as long as I'm still pushing loyalty and all the stuff that that save us money and drive visitations, I think it's just the cost of getting new customers as well.
Yeah. So as we sit here today, obviously the brand been around, as you said, 40 years, some of the concepts.
54 years.
54, yeah. Total, 54 for the, total. As you look, it used to be Chicago. You're now multiple states. Where do you see the brand being 5 years from now?
Oh, that's such a good question. I really don't know. I do think we're not done in Chicago, but I think we are focusing on other markets, which is so exciting for me. I can tell you that the next market for us is Nashville. We have an Abba and a sushi san going there. It was just there for a conference. And the Abba's going to be in the Wedgebrook neighborhood. And I think that's right. And then sushi san is going to be in 12 South. And we're really excited. I love Nashville restaurants. I love their food scene. I love the town just in general. So it's really fun that we're going to those towns. We're in Austin now, which we love. We have a very successful Abba in Austin. I think Texas is a huge opportunity for us just in general. But I do, RJ and Jared and Rich Melman, even Molly, they are in charge. They get the deals and they negotiate the deals, and, they are really, they have their finger on top of the pulse of like what's happening and the trends in the industry. And I think I trust them, and I'm excited to see where the company goes.
Fantastic. Okay, now to the favorite part of my episode, some personal questions. So for someone who's first entering who's currently entering the industry, what advice would you provide them?
Oh gosh. I think the first thing I would say is that you really gotta love it, and you gotta be ready to work hard. I think, I wanted to be a nurse because I wanted to take care of people. And then I remember my first job in a restaurant, and I felt the energy and the excitement, and I loved how everybody worked together, and the teamwork. There was just so much about the industry that resonated with me and my personality. And I always say I found my people. So it's that type of passion that's required, because it is no joke. And it is hard, and you're doing it day after day after day. It is a grind. So you really have to love it. My next bit of advice is learn every role, walk in the shoes of everybody in the restaurant. That sort of empathy carries, a ton of weight with me. So I worked one summer on the meat grill at Walker Brothers, and it was the hardest job of my entire life. I have burns. It was insane. Just cleaning the grill after my shift took hours. So I have an extraordinary amount of empathy for the back of the house, and the front of the house too. I think they're all hard. And I think this industry is really about connecting and taking care of guests and loving that part of it, but being ready to roll up your sleeves and get down and dirty and work hard.
Okay, I'm not sure you mentioned your first job in the restaurant. What was your first job, and was that it?
It was at Walker Brothers. So my first job I was 14. I got a work permit, and I was an orange juice girl, and I would freshly squeezed orange juice, and I'd have 3 different sizes, and I'd walk around and sell people orange juice. I was so short that I barely could get up to the table. And I think that I realized then that my smile, I could sell people things. And I was like, you guys look like you could use a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice. And people would look at me, and I'd just be smiling, and they're like, yeah, sure. So I loved that. That was so fun for me. And it was like a challenge to see how many I could get people to sell. And then I quickly went into other roles. And then I was a cashier. Then I worked the line, and seating everybody. And then I was a server. Then I worked the meat grill. So I've had a lot of positions. And then I've bartended and served at restaurants in college and, other restaurants. So like I said, I have an extraordinary amount of empathy for our staff and what they go through. And I love it. I love the industry. It's so fun.
When you're not working, what's your favorite activity?
Oh, gosh. Well, quality, because I work a lot, quality time with my son and my husband are really important to me. But I had to find a hobby, I think, for my own personal self-care. Needed a hobby, and it couldn't be eating or drinking, because I do a lot of that. So I wanted something that was creative, because I would watch all my designers create things, and I thought it was so cool. And I was like, I have that creative side to myself. I need something to do. So I took up flower arranging. My husband got me this DIY flower arranging every month. So flowers would arrive at my doorstep, and then you would arrange them. And I absolutely loved it. And I started playing around with colors and different types of flowers and textures and faces and all kinds of stuff. And so, again, I love hospitality because I love seeing a smile on someone's face. And so I started to just bring up and show up with flowers for my friends for everything that we did. And they just loved it. And so it just inspired me to do more and grow my own garden and have my own garden. And I just love it.
When traveling, what's your favorite city and or country to visit?
Oh gosh. Well, the city that I spent a lot of time in traveling to a different country was Paris. And I really absolutely fell in love with Paris. I thought everything about Paris was just amazing. The culture, the museums, the food, just walking around the different neighborhoods. It just had so much soul and I just felt it. And it was great. It was such a great experience.
What are you most proud of in your professional career?
Oh gosh. It's funny. We just did a marketing manager meeting where that question was asked of us. And I think it was so interesting to me how long it has been for me to really think about what I'm proud of. Because I've done a lot. I've been with the company for 26 years. But one of the things I'm really proud of is that we had a partner, female partner. Her name was Sarah Rowe, who passed away. And she was a huge influence on me and just took a lot of interest and took time to develop me and help me grow. And she was amazing. And after she passed, many of us were really sad. And what we decided to do was create a club called the Rowe Club. And it's a women's club in our company where we get people together and we do things that are philanthropic. We talk about burnout. We talk about issues and things that you might be experiencing. We had a financial planner come one time. So we put together an event called Flower Power where we got chefs and we donated to a charity. So I'm extremely proud for being one of the founding members of that. And then I'm really proud of that app. It was I was really challenged there. And it was probably the best thing I had done in my career, the best decision I had made, but really hard. And there were moments where I thought we were going to fail. There were times where we had people leave because it was so hard. It was tough, but in the end, we were, knock on wood, and we're still growing, successful, and we're continuing to push ourselves. So I'm really proud of the app.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Having seen the end result and what you were able to build there, and relatively early, there were apps, but what you've been able to do, especially for Restaurant One, is impressive, and absolutely
Thank you.
would expect to hear that on the list. So, commented earlier, and in the small world scenario at that one conference when we started talking, we found out because your last name's different. We actually grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same high school. I was in your sister's class, both, from Chicago. So I'm going to have a couple of rapid fire Chicago questions
Cool.
to see where you fall. And maybe we'll get into some debate here if you give the wrong answer. So where do you go for deep dish pizza?
Okay. Normally, and growing up, every Friday, we went to Lou's in Buffalo Grove.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you, excuse me. I'm going to tell you, I am a Pequod's fan. I don't know if you've ever had Pequod's, but it is incredible.
Okay, not gonna. I'm down in Orlando now, so any name you gave is a good one because Lou Malnati's was right there, and I know multiple people just at the Women in Restaurant Leadership was hanging out with their CMO. So love Lou's, but if I had side by side, I love the sweetness of the Geno's corn crust. But as you know, it was in Rolling Meadows there, and then when they got rid of that, so not a wrong. Either one of those would have been a good answer for me. What about non deep dish pizza?
So it started in Pilsen. It's called Bob's, and there's one I live in Evanston now, and there's one in Evanston, and they use a can of old style in their crust, and it's like my favorite. It's like a chewy crust. It's not thick or thin, kind of a crispy but yet chewy crust, and he has great toppings. I really love Bob's Pizza. It's great.
Okay, yeah. My answer would be Rosati's because it was right there
those are
growing
Chicago
up.
staples.
And the funny thing is now, where we were, that was the original. He ran it before he franchised it, and they're actually now starting to open down in Florida. They
Oh,
franchised down
really?
here.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So
great.
yeah. So my dad, when he lived in Fort Myers, we'd always go get it because I just love that pizza.
Yeah.
Okay. When you want a Chicago hot dog, where do you visit?
Easy. Portillo's.
And
It's my
thankfully, they
favorite.
opened in Orlando. The second, one of the happiest moments outside of my children's and all
I
those.
think Portillo's is the best Chicago dog. It's my order there every time.
Yeah, I don't need it, as I'm sitting here looking doing this podcast, but I'm a combo fan. Although you can't go wrong with a Chicago style hot dog, and I'm no metabolism to be able to do both on the same visit, so I'll rotate what I do there.
Yeah.
Favorite place to escape the cold in the winter?
Oh God. We're going to Jamaica. I love the Caribbean. So I think you can kind of count on it in the March timeframe because I think it's pretty nice there. And it's not necessarily hurricane season and you're just done with winter here. We're approaching March and I like every time there's just even an indication of snow or cold, you just like, when is this going to end? It just feels like it's gone on forever. So I love doing like a spring break in the Caribbean somewhere.
Cubs or Sox?
Ooh, I'm one of those people that like both, but my dad grew up on the north side. My dad was a hardcore Cubs fan for sure. And so my dad passed away in 2022. So he got to see them win the World Series. And there was no greater joy in my life than watching that. So that was really awesome.
Okay, I'm actually, you and I are aligned in that. I prefer the Cubs. If the apocalypse, although I don't hate the Sox, and if the apocalypse ever came and they both met in the World Series, I, of course, would root for the Cubs.
I agree. And I think I'm a Chicago fan, So like, I think that's okay.
If you moved away, what would you miss most?
Oh gosh, the people. I think Chicagoans are incredible people. Salt of the earth, nice, kind, funny, willing to like help your neighbor. Some of my closest friends are the people that live right around my house. I just think it's such a wonderful place to raise a family, to grow up. The winters are terrible, but the people make it worth it. And then at a very close second, I'll say the food. I would miss the food for sure.
Oh, the first was people and family that are still up there. And then the second was the food. And little by little, like I said, I look forward to May every year for the restaurant show because I have my catch-up list. And then when Portillo's came down here, that was a big one. And then you can order the Luminati's pizzas, so some around the holiday. And then shockingly, down here in Orlando, Aldi's will have Gino's East frozen pizzas.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Pretty good. I mean, not to the same level.
But,
And they used to Target many years ago when I first moved down here in like the 2000s would actually have Vienna beef hot dogs, which were a big deal to go buy those and store them in the freezer. But now that we have Portillo's, I'm okay without it.
That's great. I love it.
So final question for you. What's something that most people don't know about you, Jen?
Oh my God. I think it's a cop-out answer to say I'm an open book, but I really am. One thing that comes to mind is I'm petrified of clowns. Like,
you're one of them.
I am one of them. And it was Poltergeist. Do you remember Poltergeist?
Oh, yes.
And you remember the clown that like that, that it was, and then there was a clown picture in my room that I used to like take off the wall and like put in the closet because it was scared the crap out of me. So I do not like clowns. But one of the things that's really interesting is that I have always been an extrovert. I actually get energy from people. I love being around people. But as I've gotten older, I've become a little bit more in need of time to myself, which is not anything I had needed up until now. So I think not most people would describe me as an extrovert, but I think what they don't know is that I recently need to be somewhat introverted as well. So I think that's interesting.
It's all that energy that we have to have, when we're on the stage.
And when you get older, you get tired.
Exactly. Yeah, tired. I just as soon have a quiet night at home Friday night than
Sounds
have to go
better,
out.
right?
Yes. Well, unfortunately, Jen, that's all the time we have for this episode. But thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insight.
Oh, so good to see you, Brian.
So good to see you. Look forward to seeing you, hopefully, at Restaurant Leadership Conference. And thank you again. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And thank you to everyone for joining us. And here's to celebrating the industry we love and serve. Until next time, stay hungry for success.